Now we come to the final segment of a program which involves a panel discussion. Association of California State Employees with Disabilities, ACSED, and the SDAC recently honored a top 3 departments DACs for their superior efforts in support of success of departments, efforts to hire, retain, and have persons with disabilities, especially DACs. So there'll be a panelist of folks: Dan Clark, ACSED's past president and the chair of the awards committee, and Riana Harden, ACSED board member, will hold this panel presentation and discussion regarding noted DAC activities. So this is very important because we can learn a lot from other DACs that are doing the right things. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Dan Clark, Riana, and the panelists will be Toby Ewing, Director of Mental Services Oversight and Accountability Commission, Isaac Gendler, DAC co-chair with PUC, Public Utilities Commission. We have Lisa Kunz, Accessibility Compliance Specialist. And we also have another member here that I don't recognize, and forgive me for not recognizing you. If you would please unmute and introduce yourself, that'll be great as well. And Dan, Riana, and the rest of the panelists, welcome to SDAC.
Thank you, Toby. Thank you, Bobby. I was thinking of Toby here. Yeah, thank you. Again, this is Dan Clark. I've been the chair of the awards committee for, I think, the past 5-6 years. And so, I've been asked a lot of times after we do our awards presentation, what were you seeing? What was good? What was bad? And so forth through the nomination process. And I've been I thought it'd be good for us to maybe at this time, since we've got this virtual program going, is to put together a little panel discussion with some of the awardees, as well as, and I think I have Toby, the director of the Mental Health Services Oversight and Accountability Commission here, because he was one of the awardees under the ACES Awards, which in order to, under the ACES, you basically have to meet the criteria having met the 16.6% parity rate plus other factors that we look at. And so he was selected. In my discussion with him, I found some interesting things that they're doing. So what I kind of wanted to do here in this panel discussion is to have the two awardees for the DAC of the year. We have the DAC of the year went to CalPERS, as well as an achievement went to the California Public Utilities Commission. I wanted them to kind of talk about their DAC activities and sort of focus on how what they were doing and how they worked, and maybe talk about some of the challenges they had that they overcome that got them in the place they're at, that they, when they presented, they presented a very dynamic, active program that is interactive with the department and so forth, and seems to be making strides with we feel meeting the spirit of the law of what 19795, the government code, is intended to do, is to help address and try to improve on parity and representation and so forth. And then again, in light of the AB 313, we're seeing a refocus on what was really there in 19795 about representation. So I just thought it'd be a good time to hear it in the trenches to talk about that. So what I'd like to do is start off with the California Public Utilities, and Isaac, if you or the panelists, to start that way, and then Lisa and then Toby can talk. Take about 10-15 minutes to talk about it, and Riana then can talk as a member of a panelist, and she was one of the review panelists too in this year's selection. So I'd like you just to kind of start sharing with us how your DAC is working. So,
Of course. Well, it's a very broad topic, but we're a very broad group. So I'm sure we're perfect for this. Yeah, so our DAC has really recently had a rebirth where it was declining in the past 2 years. And then with the advent of COVID, a lot of the people in the DAC decided that we have to get our act together. I actually did not come into my agency until September of 2020. So right after the pandemic hit. And as a person with disabilities myself, who has faced discrimination because of my disabilities, I wanted to work right away on topics to help people, not only people with disabilities, but other marginalized groups in the workplace. And so I immediately learned about that and I joined. And by February, I was the vice chair. And we got huddled together. We had to start making a plan to rebuild the DAC. So one of the first things we did was that we decided that we were to meet with other DACs, that are more experienced and more knowledgeable. So this includes CalPERS. We also met with the California Highway Patrol and took lessons on how they approach DAC issues. We also started hosting events, to help educate people about disabilities and disability awareness. For the past 2 years, we've held not only an event for Disability Awareness Month in October, we've also held events to commemorate Disabilities Independence Day, which specifically is July 26th, the signing of the ADA. And another, I think, very, very powerful thing we are incorporating to our own DAC is that we're really bringing intersectionality and solidarity as a part of the fabric of our DNA. To illustrate, last year at the 2022 Disability Independence Day event, we actually joined forces with our CPU, with our organizations, African American Coalition for Equity and Employment, to host a lunch and learn events dedicated to the parallels and intersections of anti-Black racism and ableism. Most of the speakers were Black disabled people, and there were some non-Black disabled people and Black non-disabled people to also share the full spectrum of the parallels and intersections. And we really did discuss and went to depth how, even though we kind of treat ableism and anti-Black racism as separate things in everyday conversations, how there's so many parallels, so many connections, and how we have to really center Black disabled people during our conversations about this. And not only that really puts our DAC on the mental map of people in our organizations, we also had one of the panelists join our DAC because they were so impressed with our work and our collaboration. And we're continuing this collaborative spirit to this day, where we are now really starting to join forces more with the other ERGs. Like, we're talking about hosting other events with other ERGs to help make our organization more aware of all these intersectional issues that affect all of us. And of course, we are also looking into a lot of the policy implementation. Like, we have a very strong relationship with our EEO officer, who's a very, very great person. And we're looking about implementing requirements and planning for AB 313. We're also getting more conversation time with our executives. The CPUC is a very interesting organization, whereas a government appointment commission, we have an executive director, a president, and 5 commissioners who have rotate every 3 years in and out of the commission. And we make an effort to meet with each and every one of them at least once a year. And our current executive director is actually meeting with all the other employee resource groups, so that such as the DAC and the African American group and the LGBTQ group a few times a year, just to really talk about issues and how we can get things to work. And a lot of this comes from just having very strong relationships. Like we have a very strong relationship with our EEO officer. They're very supportive of our ideas, and they do listen to DAC. And luckily for us, they do tend to present our ideas unfiltered to the top. We also make sure to attend SDAC meetings such as this, and that these SDAC meetings have really helped with us when we started doing a gap analysis in our statewide teleworking policy in September 2021. So we've oh, sorry. Just looking at the chat. It's not directed to me. That's good. Okay. We we're maintaining a SharePoint site for information about people, about everything related to disabilities at the CPUC. And we're really trying to have a whole 360-degree approach to integrating disability advocacy into our organization. And we're very lucky about how, with the pandemic, instead of deflating our momentum, it actually built it. And now we're so much bigger and stronger today. And I can go on and on forever, but I want to make sure other panelists have time to talk. Thank you.
Lisa?
Yes. Good morning. My name is Lisa Kunz. I'm the CalPERS Disability Advisory Committee Chair and team member of CalPERS Accessibility Compliance Team. I'm a middle-aged white female wearing clear-framed glasses. I use the pronouns she, her, hers. And on behalf of CalPERS and the CalPERS Disability Advisory Committee, we thank SDAC and ACSED for providing this opportunity to share about the work we do. The CalPERS Disability Advisory Committee, or known as SDAC, is dedicated to the inclusion and equality of employees with disabilities and to ensure an environment that is accessible to all employees, regardless of disability type. The SDAC promotes its mission of inclusion by developing and sponsoring employee awareness programs and events. Our anticipation is that our members' advocacy efforts will ensure universal accessibility to all employees. We have 4 officers, and for 2023, the officers are, for the chair, myself. Vice chair is Glenn Studer. Secretary Geetha Balaji, and treasurer Matthew Manley. We also have bylaws in which we review annually. We meet for 1 hour on the 4th Thursday of each month via Zoom. We alternate hosting these meetings every other month with our sister employee resource group, which is the CalPERS Diversity and Inclusion Group, or CDIG. In these meetings, the full agenda is dedicated to disability topics, including laws, resources, awareness, and inclusion, with a focus on training and education. And some of our past meeting topics and planned topics for this year include developmental disabilities, disability pride, stigma and ableism, employment protections for veterans and persons with disabilities, women's rights and intersectionality with disability, invisible disabilities, and accessible customer services. So occasionally, the CalPERS DAC and CDIG hold joint meetings to discuss the intersectionality of other diversity-related topics with accessibility. So for example, last September, the meeting was on mental health in Hispanic and Latinx communities to honor both National Suicide Prevention Month and National Hispanic Heritage Month. Our goal is to make the CalPERS DAC meetings educational to all team members by bringing different presenters and topics to the meetings and events. We also close each meeting with additional resources related to that month's meeting topic. They could be something for additional reading or a video or even events or other ways to get involved in activities. In addition to the bi-monthly meetings, the DAC officers meet frequently throughout the month to work on DAC-related activities, such as planning for upcoming monthly meetings and preparing to give presentations to various groups. We invite other DAC members to join these meetings if they have a passion for the topic being discussed and the freedom in their workload to participate. We also pushed to change our online meeting platform to a more inclusive one, and further to educate our team members on the importance of holding inclusive meetings, the DAC model's best practices, fostering an inclusive environment where all team members feel like they belong. And this includes providing a sign language interpreter, captions, visual descriptions, and a land acknowledgement. All CalPERS team members are invited to participate in DAC activities, including serving on the committee, serving as an officer, attending monthly meetings, planning ad hoc special events, recommending process or procedure changes, and communicating concerns to leadership. Currently, we do not require a formal membership application. Rather, we allow all team members to participate as much or as little as they desire. We have 125 team members who are on our distribution list. Members on our distribution list have requested to be informed about upcoming DAC meetings, events, and special committees. All members on the list receive meeting agendas, meeting minutes, and surveys, and are invited to participate in the annual election process. The average meeting attendance is 80.3 attendees per meeting. In addition, we have 77 team members who are part of our public DAC Yammer community, and that's an internal social media platform. And this space serves as a platform for people to share ideas, articles, resources related to the inclusion and equality of employees with disabilities, regardless of disability type. And again, this is open to anyone in CalPERS to participate. We also take pride in sharing our experiences with others outside of CalPERS, whether to speak at meetings such as today or one-on-ones to share best practices, how to enhance engagement and practices, and recommendations on the development of a DAC. And we really enjoy those discussions, and you're welcome to reach out to us. It's an opportunity to help each other. We made great progress last year due to the efforts of the many people who have given their time and expertise, including the officers of our DAC and also the officers of the CalPERS Diversity and Inclusion Group, plus our advisors from the CalPERS Diversity Outreach Program and the Equal Employment Opportunity Office. A lot of our success is because we receive multifaceted structured support, And that's starting with the diversity outreach program. And we're also grateful to have support from the top, from our board members, CEO, executive officers, and senior leaders. And they've all played a key role in helping us make meaningful change at CalPERS. We're quite fortunate to have the structure and support that we do, and we understand that we are lucky to have the pieces that others may not have. New last year, the DAC chair and vice chair meet monthly with the Deputy Executive Officer of Communications and Stakeholder Relations and the Chief Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Officer to discuss upcoming programs and the format and content of that month's meeting. This ensures that the chair, vice chair, and senior executives have time to connect and is an opportunity to provide key details with the executive team. In addition, CalPERS has a diversity and inclusion council comprised of our CEO delegates, and senior leaders from across the organization. The DAC chair uses the monthly meetings to present disability topics, upcoming events the DAC is holding, and to encourage senior leadership to attend DAC meetings, discuss the DAC activities at their team meetings, and be active supporters of the DAC. We also present to the Investment Office's Diversity and Inclusion Steering Committee. By making the DAC membership inclusive of all classifications, we have both increased participation and continue to expand upon the depths of discussion that we have at our meetings. And Dan had mentioned challenges and what are some of the challenges. And I'll share that last year for the CalPERS DAC, we did have some officer turnover. So we had vacancies and we were able to fill those, but we did have just not a full staff at all times. And luckily though, we did have the support again of the diversity and outreach program and of our sister ERG, the diversity and inclusion group. But it still was a challenge for consistency and being able to plan adequately for the meetings that we were responsible for. And we see an upcoming challenge for switching to a hybrid meeting format. We plan to do that in the coming month in March. And it's just, finding the right tech, keeping all participants engaged, and how do we find that right balance between making it an engaging and still just interactive meeting for those that are online and in the room. So we see that as an upcoming challenge, and we're researching hybrid meeting best practices to do the best that we can and support our members.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Dan, I just wanted to close. Our team is passionate about disability rights, and we look forward to future opportunities to continue our advocacy and allyship. So thank you for your time.
I appreciate the work. One of the things that, and your department has a lot of resources, which is nice, but the fact that you have up to an average of 80 people attend a DAC meeting, because you open it to everybody, which is through the intranet, I assume. Do you find that helping in the way of hiring? Are you seeing any difference in your hiring of more individual disabilities? Are you finding more action from people that are listening about it, contacting you about their issues, reasonable accommodation? This is resulting in people out there contacting you and things moving.
So I'm very thankful that our EEO officer is also participating in this meeting right now, and I may, Christina, call upon you for your assistance. Dan, I don't know if we've seen direct results yet from that, but I will say that our members appreciate having that space and to know that there is support. But as far as the employment, Christina, is there anything you can share about that? And sorry to put you on the spot.
No problem. I don't have cameras. I apologize for that. What was the question again, Dan? Can you please repeat that?
Okay. One of my position when at ACSED, when I'm looking at stuff, part of the reason having a DAC is that it provides information and consultation to the director about what they can do to improve the representation of people with disabilities in the organization. And as much as we're all doing that, we're trying to improve on that. The fact that you have this using your intranet and having such more numbers than I've expected to see at a DAC meeting. Do you see that like supervisors are listening in or individuals are listening in, and as a result of it, people are either getting RA taken care of, supervisors are thinking, oh, looking at hiring, is it resulting in the performance and in getting to a better representation of people with disabilities in your agency overall? I mean, I think that's what we're all striving for.
Yeah, we have definitely seen people are more comfortable coming forward to us, right, with like concerns or their needs for reasonable accommodation. So I'll speak on reasonable accommodation. We do have a high number of cases as to compare with, me working in other state agencies that are similar in size. I'm not sure it's necessarily to the climate, right, due to like being switched from a hybrid, from a full-time work to hybrid, that was an uptick in our RA cases, but I have seen that throughout. So I think just generally people are more comfortable approaching whether it's the EEO office or one of the members that serves in our Disability Advisory Committee with questions or concerns about, resources and things of that nature. And, I'm sure Lisa would be able to, attest to that as well. But that's kind of what we see. People are really comfortable, I would say, and know where to go to when they have a need.
Right. Okay. I mean, I appreciate that. We're trying to move the needle, and that's what the DACs are. We at ACSED try to get the government code put in place to do. So we're hoping we see results of that. We need to move on. I wanted to let Toby share with him when I called Toby about the fact that he was winning the award as one of the ACES Awards. He started to share with me some of the things they were doing in their department, and I thought it'd be nice for him to share with us what they're doing. And this was because they just got it because, again, they have met parity. They're just doing some actions, and he has some interesting things that they were doing that I thought he might want to share. So Toby, if you would go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Dan, and hello to everybody who's on here. And I actually don't know, parity was, I think you said 16.6, and I don't actually recall what the percentage is for our department. We're a small agency, between 50 to 60 staff. So, we're not the smallest, but we're tiny relative to, many of the larger departments. And, we started thinking about kind of, why is it that we have high numbers of people who are identifying and what's sort of driving that? And admittedly, I'm the director. I'm not familiar with, our DAC is done in partnership with the Highway Patrol. We really focus, because of the nature of our work, which is on mental health, on stigma and discrimination and equity. And so, we think that part of the reason why we've been an attractive employer for people with disabilities and why there's a level of comfort talking about that is because we're very explicit about the work we do, particularly around talking about disabilities through an equity lens. And so, there was a conversation earlier about equity and implicit bias training. We went through the process of a racial equity plan, and it really reinforced people's understanding of implicit bias, not just on issues of race, but implicit bias kind of broadly defined. And we're aggressively focused on what we call peer empowerment in the mental health space. So people living with mental health needs, or, to use the federal definition, a mental impairment or a mental disability. We don't use those terms in this space. We talk about mental health and needs and challenges, but we're doing a couple of things that are that we're really excited about. We have a partnership with CalHR to reframe conversations around mental health as a disability and around the attributes of having a mental health need, having lived experience, and how can we elevate lived experience as an asset, as merit, to use the term of our civil service system. The idea is that we often think of a disability, and in this case, a mental health need, as something that we have to accommodate rather than something that is a strength. Particularly in the space where we work, we actually think that lived experience is a strength that can help us improve the alignment between our work and public needs. So the question isn't, kind of what positions lend themselves to, it's more of how do we make sure from our executive level into all of our programming and operational spaces that we are recruiting, employing, and supporting people who have lived experience, because that will make us more responsive to the populations that we serve. We've developed our own fellowship to make sure that we can hire people. It's a paid full health insurance fellowship for a mental health peer. And again, this is another strategy for people who may not be interested in state employment or who may not qualify for state employment because of their disability. We actually have a fellowship for people who have mental health needs to make sure, and again, it's not designed to be a job access strategy for the commission. It's designed to make sure that our work is responsive to the needs of people with mental health experiences. It also may be an access point for employment. The commission is about to adopt, so next week the commission meets. On the agenda is a report on mental health in the workplace. And so we have actually established, we work with the governor and the legislature for them to give us direction to establish standards for mental health in the workplace, to really recognize the way that the workplace can create mental health needs, but it can also create resiliency for people. And we can create safe spaces for people to talk about their mental health needs and to have access to care and support so they can be successful. And so if adopted next week, we will be, I think, the first state in the nation to actually establish standards for mental health in the workplace. They're voluntary standards by design. And so we'll be working to actually promote these through the workplace. And then, we're part of a coalition. This wasn't our idea, but we joined pretty quickly. We're part of a coalition of state agencies that are working on equity. So the State Independent Living Council, the Commission on Aging, the State Commission on Developmental Disabilities, CalAble, this commission, and we're open to others joining, where we meet periodically to talk about shared opportunities to elevate this equity perspective around Californians who have, who are identified in some way with an equity challenge, age, ability, right, mental health, etc. So, we're really trying to come up with creative ways to position the commission as a safe space, as an agenda setter, and as a driver of transformational change in the space of public understanding and awareness and support for people who may not be neurotypical. And so we're really trying to learn from other states, other countries, other organizations, other areas. And we're really proud of the work we're doing and the fact that it is reflected in the high numbers of employees that come to us, that apply, that get hired, and that come to work and work hard every day, who identify as having a disability. We're thrilled with that. And my hope is that we get better, both in terms of the access we create to folks who are looking for employment, that we get better at actually enhancing or elevating recognition of differences in ability as a strength, not a limitation, and that we get better at creating pathways for promotion and opportunities, in our shop and outside of the commission as we move forward. Really appreciate the chance I want to thank the association again for recognizing us and helping us, make this even more explicit. and appreciate the chance to talk to you this morning and learn about what some of you were doing. It's make me kind of double down and learn more about our own DAC.
Thanks, Toby. This is Dan. This is the first time I've done this, so I wanted to actually go back. Is there anybody have any questions either about Toby, what he's saying, or even what Isaac has shared? Go forward at this point, and then just want to see.
Well, there's one question that came up in the chat, and that question is, Corey asked, how would we participate in the Access Commission Toby mentioned?
So there's 4 or 5 of us that meet quarterly, and I think I would want to, so I put my email in the chat for anybody who wants it. Send me a note and we will, circle back, right? I think this little coalition, if that's what you mean, this little coalition of people who are working on equity issues, we meet for coffee, about once a quarter and just share stories. And it's about, who is doing what and what can we learn from each other? And so I think, again, I didn't found this group, right? And so I'd want to check with the partners and make sure that there's some mission alignment, but reach out. We can certainly follow up.
Okay.
And Isaac also posted his email. Lisa, you're welcome to do the same if you like.
Yeah.
I didn't want to leave you out.
Well,
Toby, someone in the chat did ask, could you list out exactly which agency you're with? I think I get it from your email, but I think the team would like to hear it.
Toby's agency is also listed on our agenda, by the way.
okay. All right. I've asked Riana to participate in this because being a reviewer, and I've been a past reviewer, may want to share some of our, people say, well, what were you looking for? What came up? What was going on? And in some respects, everybody, Lisa shared a little bit about what they're doing. And I think the biggest thing that for me, I liked was the fact that using that intranet and having it exposed, and when they have a meeting, they let everybody in to come to it. I think that is great because it will get feedback. Some departments don't even know you have a DAC, don't know anything about this. And this is, if you let everybody know that that's going on, it might click someplace and it'll, it's going to work. So I think that was something pretty good. I know that from the PUC, they were struggling to rebuild, and they came to us and we had a discussion about what they could do and so forth. And they had some issues also in connectivity with the director and commissioners and stuff like that. And we're just saying, how do we grow and get more connectivity going? And as a result of what they're doing, we can see by their activity and what they presented in our nomination packet that things are working, they're going real well. So we recognize that. So along with that, I wanted to, and that it showed the activity working. That's what we're looking for, activity, having a plan. And so I wanted to have Riana kind of, from her perspective as a reviewer, what things stood out with her? What was she looking for? What things that kind of moved her? So, because I think people want to know what's going on, and it's not so important you do it to win, because I have to tell you the scores between in the DAC of the year, particularly for the achievement, there's only 3 points between them, between the selection, and we had 3 or 4 agencies right packed next to each other. They're almost right there, and it's nice to get the recognition. But I want to say there's other programs that are doing a lot of good stuff. So again, I'd like Riana to take some time here to share what her experience has been.
Thank you so much, and thank you everybody for being a part of the panel today, and thank you, Dan, for trusting me to convey the review process to SDAC. This was my first time being a part of the review panel. I've been involved, or a little bit involved with ACSED for a number of years, participating on legislative committee, and so this was like and I've attended past events, but this was my first time actually taking part and seeing the process of how the decision was made. So it was very, very interesting to be a part of that process and to see and hear and listen to my fellow reviewers about their thoughts on the applicants that were submitted. For me, what stood out was just the more creativity of how people go about, how DACs went about educating their fellow employees and just informing the department about disability issues and disability awareness. And I know that we've been in a state of, kind of flux and having to do a lot of shifting in the way that we as departments interact and do our business because of a public health crisis of COVID-19. And so it's really been interesting and was interesting to read how different DACs were maintaining or continuing to do business and being creative in their way in which they conducted the outreach to their fellow employees with the different constraints and concerns for people's health. So I know it's been challenging because we haven't had as many big ticketed tabling events that we normally see for people to educate and interact with fellow employees. So it was just really interesting to me to see the different ways in which the DACs have been creative in their outreach efforts. And it really stood out. What also stood out to me was that the executive directors and the HR staff were present and involved in activities and aware of the DACs. So that was encouraging as well. Thanks.
Yeah, I think, the programs were, and I like what you're doing, Isaac, is that you're meeting with the commissioners too. I think that's great. I think, directors come and go, and sometimes the interaction is different, but you've got to be striving, continually to work with the director, develop a dialogue of what you can. I think some of the earlier statements earlier in the program today about having, I think Susan brought up, being able to share the voice of the DAC is very important, and I think that's something we really need to strive, because I think that's why we wanted it in place. So anyway, excuse me, my wife. So yeah, I think it is there, but aside from sometimes there's issues in that communication area. One thing we do look for, and I think DACs need to, when they put them, is to show their activity level, their planning. I think we should, for me as a reviewer, I was looking at, do they kind of have a long-term plan, a strategic plan of what they want to get to, and then what are they working on? And the stuff you're working on, and you're not going to win on everything, but that you come back and reassess. Is that our priorities? We want to work on them and try another approach and so forth. That's, for me, when I'm looking at it, although we identify some real good things out of it, like for example, what I thought Lisa was doing with intranet, because I'm old school. I have a hard time. I'm always learning about the internet and use of technology. So for me, I thought that was very creative. But the point being is that is that I think what it's more important for me when I'm looking at review at nominations is that the DACs are trying to be active and they're working at something. They're trying to make success, and it's not if the door shuts, they're going to try a different way. But it's again, it's activity, the reassessment, and moving ahead, and having sort of a plan of what they're trying to achieve. For me, as a reviewer, that's what I kind of look for. So I don't know. Is there any questions out there from?
Yeah, Dan, there are 3 questions that I want to go ahead and present to the panelists and you. One of the questions, how do you manage assigning DAC projects when everyone is volunteering their time and it can be difficult to balance workload? Question 1. Question 2 is from Brian, who just formed, Brian comes from Cannabis Control, a new department, and he's looking for some guidance. We just created this department newly. We are currently recruiting DAC members, plan to hold our department's first DAC meeting. Congratulations, Brian, in March of 2023. Any tips for us? We can get our DAC up and running. And finally, I think we could all learn a lot from DAC groups that applied and we evaluated. Is there a report that we can all read? We would love to see this. So those are the questions that I have so far.
Good point. Well, go ahead, take the panel report.
I can share my thoughts. For the balance of the workload, again, we do have that tiers of support. So we do have our diversity outreach program, our advisors who do assist our volunteer officers. And then we also have our, as I mentioned, the sister employee resource group, the diversity and inclusion group. So their support as well. For Isaac, I think it was Isaac, you would pose the question. Definitely, get the leadership support, get your sponsor at, a leader who can sponsor and advocate for you. Also, what's been very successful, and Dan had mentioned the intranet, and I didn't speak to this too much. We partner with our public affairs program. And so we do a lot of internal communication to our employees, whether that's on the intranet or on Yammer, posting bulletins, sending out calendar items. We're spreading the word, and we're using different channels and different ways to communicate about it. And I would say, Isaac, do that, write some articles, get on the calendar, just share about that you've created this and it's open to your employees, and that'll help as well, I believe.
Well, thank you. I don't know if I asked the question, maybe it was another Isaac, but to answer the question, how do we manage assigning DAC project while balancing workloads? Well, because we are a government mandated institution, we are allocated up to 16 hours per month to work on DAC related activities by our workplace. And we also have a very core group of dedicated volunteers. There's currently around, let's say, between 11 active DAC members right now. And even though it's small, it's very elite. That's people who are very dedicated, motivated. And because in the CPUC, it's very often that workloads aren't like a constant level. It's more of like a sine wave, where there are periods of time where you have lots of work and periods of time where you don't have a lot of work. So everyone's at different phases of the sine wave. So usually people who don't have a lot of work going on can do a lot of that volunteering, and we don't have a lot, they don't have to. For example, I was the leader for for the collaboration event with the African American Coalition. And I was able to do it at a time when I didn't have too much work. And right after that ended, I had a lot of work come in. But because I already did that event, I did not have to work on the October National Disability Employment Awareness Month event. So it's very informal. And we also have 3 officers, a chair, a vice chair, and a secretary who is on the call today. Hello, Alex. And
hey, Isaac.
yeah. And so yeah, just having core people is what you really need. People who are very, very motivated and dedicated. That works for us at least. And then for guidance on recruiting DAC members, it's what we do is that we do every time we have an event, we talk about, hey, come join DAC, please join, and we were able to get our last few members that at the end of our meetings, we gave a little advertisement spiel saying, hey, you want to work with us? Come join. And we also, I think, sometimes can send out like emails to departments about looking for DAC. And also collaborating with other groups allows you to bring other people into the DAC. Like one of our most recent members came in because of that collaboration we did with the African American Coalition. And she's a very hardworking member and very great addition. And so it also shows that creating those intersectional alliances will bring more people into your group as well.
Thank you. You any more? Go on.
Just look at Alex's comments in the chat.
Okay.
Alex says, quick shout out to Isaac is amazing. Anybody, this has been a great discussion, fantastic panel, got a lot of feedback. People are appreciative of the resources that you all shared, very useful and focused towards DAC's establishment and effectiveness and maintenance of DAC. So thank you all. Dan, Riana, or any of the other panelists, do you have any last words?
I wanted the last question. You posed 3 questions, and I think your last question was related to the cannabis organization looking for. Yeah. I have to tell you the truth. I mean, in the past, the DMV DAC, I can't remember her name at this moment, who was the chair there, was really helpful and was open for new DACs to contact her to help, and she would provide consultation to help them in development. I'm not sure if she's still there. I will do so if you're looking for somebody. I'll take some time to help find somebody. But if there's anybody on this presentation, any DACs here willing to step up and help be a partner, because one of the nomination questions is, are you partnering or working with other DACs and working in partnership? So if this is an opportunity to partner with somebody, so they can speak up, and maybe Bobby, and we can talk later. Maybe you've been in touch with a few we can maybe approach to help them find some partnerships with other DACs. So, and for me, I want to thank the panelists to being available to do this, Riana, Lisa, and Isaac, and also Toby. I think it's good to see what Toby's doing, irrespective of his DAC, and what they're doing to help create a more inclusive partnership. And Toby, I want to look at your parity numbers. Actually are up. You're at 20.9, and I think this last year you're at, you've been rated to 20.9, and your average is 21.92. So yeah, it's fluctuating, so it's above parity, but anyway. But the point being is, we're all here to work toward trying to get equal representation, and so I hope this has been helpful. I've learned from doing this. Next time I see a few things I can help make this a little bit more productive and efficient, but I think this is something good. And the report, somebody asked about writing a report. I need it, that's something we should consider maybe just doing a summary of something and having it in addition on our website at the end. So that's a good suggestion.
And the other thing I could suggest is we, at the end of each meeting, first of all our meetings are recorded and published on YouTube for later viewing. In addition to that, we provide a summary at some point, and within that, if you provide any sort of a link to our report, we'll be happy to add that on as an added resource. So anyway, thank you all for a great presentation, fantastic panelists. We appreciate all you do for DAC and person with disabilities and for your departments. And keep up the good work. Thanks, and all of you have a great day. We are ending the event. Enjoy.